June 25th, 1950, Korean soldiers from the North invaded the South because the South wanted to break away from the North's communist government. The U.S. went to aid the South, but had some doubts in doing so. They were afraid their involvement could start a worldwide spread of communism, or that the Soviet Union or China would get involved to save the communist government in Korea. The U.S. still believed it was their right and duty to intervene in the war in order to stop any expansion of communism. As the soldiers fought in one of the hottest and driest summers in Korea, water started to become a limited resource. Soldiers had to undergo drastic measures to obtain water in order to stay alive. U.S. soldiers only found water in rice paddies fertilized by human waste, leading to intestinal diseases developing, and a lot of lives were lost due to the limit of this resource. The U.S. tried a new strategy to push North Koreans back to their side of the peninsula. Eventually, the U.S. started pushing them into Chinese communist territory, which angered China, leading them to send troops into North Korea to warn the U.S. to not go any further, or they would declare war on them. Finally, after 2 years of negotiating, an armistice was signed permanently, establishing North and South Korea as their own countries. This allowed North Korea to keep a communist government and South Korea the ability to have a democratic government. I interviewed my grandpa, Bert Strander, on his experience in the Air Force Reserves as a member of the construction squadron during the Korean War. Or during the Korean War, you were in the Air Force, and were you sent to a certain place to build the communication towers?
No, I joined. I was working offshore for Chevron, and this was right out of high school, right after right when my father died. One of my neighbors said, "Go ahead and get your diploma, your high school diploma, and I'm gonna get you a job with Chevron." So he did, and I went offshore. And because I worked for an oil company producing oil, which was extremely important to the country at the time, they didn't draft me, but they asked me to, because I had structural experience climbing towers and things like that. And they asked me if I would join the Air Force, the Reserve, and that I would work in I would participate in construction squadron, communications construction squadron, which was building towers and doing communication work. And but it was never full time. They knew that I was working offshore, and I had a family, and they didn't actually draft me because they knew I was participating in an area where they wanted me to participate in, and I was teaching the rest of the recruits how to build these towers, which was supposedly important for the country at the time, and also producing oil.
Okay, and what was your thoughts on America's involvement in the war?
Well, it was mostly communism. Stop the movement of communism into the United States or worldwide. And it was an area of the world that we hadn't really participated in. And the Second World War should have taught us a lesson, but it really didn't. We still had this these big problems with countries that we didn't understand. And South Korea, became extremely important to us because they do have brilliant people there and very good working class. North Korea, we're still having problems with it because it's run by a dictator. And any country on this globe that is run by a dictator is not a good place to live, because one man can't make a decision for millions of people. It's got to be a gradual thing, and the right people have to be elected for that to take place. So the South Korea became a democracy, and North Korea stayed like it is, with a crazy guy in charge.
Right. So, you think that America, that was the right decision for us to get involved?
Somebody had to, and we're that kind of country. More so before than we are now. We kind of learned our lesson after 3 world wars. But if it's not right, we have a tendency to correct it, and it gets us in trouble. But in most cases, it's the right thing to do, because we're still the number 1 power in the world and most educated in the world, and we still practically govern the world. And it's good to be living here.
Okay, and at the time, during the war, how were other American people reacting to our involvement in the war?
Nothing like what takes place now.
Right.
There was, and it really didn't last very long. I think it lasted 5 years, 4 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't try to take over. We didn't try to take over the Korean people. We went there to help them. We did fight for them, and we did lose a lot of American lives. But it was to stop communism, and it was coming in from the north, from North Korea.